Hello and welcome to another video on the Inner Sanctum's YouTube channel. I'm your host, Jakson Bertoli today, and I'm joined with our resident YouTube man, Anthony Alesiani. Anthony, how you going?
Good, Jackos. Good to be on.
Very good to see you, mate. Another one joining us, coming back after his, brilliant previews a few months ago. Jarryd Thomas, JT, nice to see you, mate.
Nice to be back on. It's very good to be back.
And last but certainly not least, Brandon Patane, a very esteemed writer of ours. How you going?
Yeah, I'm good, Jacko. Good to be back on.
Very good. Well, today, lads, we have got something in store for the viewers. We are going to be ranking all 18 key defensive pairings in the AFL. This has been a strenuous task, and there's no promises how this video goes, but I'm absolutely looking forward to it. I'll run through pretty much all 18 clubs in the pairing we've chosen. So we've all gone to the same pair to make it consistent. For Adelaide, we've got Tom Doedee and Nick Murray. Brisbane is Harris Andrews and Jack Payne. Carlton is Lockie Young, Jacob Wiedering. Collingwood is Nathan Murphy and Darcy Moore. Essendon is Brandon Zerk Thatcher and Jordan Ridley. Fremantle is Brennan Cox and Alex Pearce. Geelong is Sam DeConning and Tom Stewart. Gold Coast, Charlie Ballard, Sam Collins. GWS, Sam Taylor and Jack Buckley. Hawthorn, James Sicily and Sam Frost. Melbourne, Stephen May and Jake Lever. North Melbourne, Ben Mackay and Griffin Logue. Port Adelaide, Alira Lee and Trent McKenzie. Richmond, Tyler Young and Noah Bolter. St Kilda, Callum Wilkie, Dougal Howard. Sydney, Tom and Paddy McCartan. West Coast, Tom Barrass and Jeremy McGovern. And the Western Bulldogs, Alex Keith and Liam Jones. After that mouthful, we may as well get into it, everyone. Anthony, you said you wanted to kick us off. Who do you have with number 18? And we'll start from the bottom and work our way up.
Yeah, well, it's been a very hard thought process, this one. I've spent many hours going through this list, and I thought to myself, after the performance, obviously we're recording this after round 7, so there's been some data. Number 18 for myself is Essendon. Zerk Thatcher and Ridley.
Jarryd is absolutely shocked at that one. We won't get into too much explanation with the bottom teams. We'll kind of run through some of these because we're going to have a long night here. Jarryd, why don't you talk us through that shock and also who you've got at 18th?
Just a little bit shocked because I definitely have Essendon quite a lot higher than that. We'll get to that later. The bottom for me is a pairing that pretty much based purely on the looks of it. I just think with these two running your back line, I don't think there's really much going for you. Defensively wise, I'm going to go with the Bulldogs. I'm going to go with Alex Keith and Liam Jones.
For a bit of context on that, make sure you go check out the Glass Table podcast and on the Pairs YouTube channel. JT, notorious, not a big fan of the Bulldogs lineup. Brando, you seemed pretty comfortable with Ant's selection of Essendon. Who do you have down the bottom?
I was not comfortable with Ant's selection, and we'll get onto that later. But I'm comfortable with JT's because I've also got Liam Jones and Alex Keith. I just think I couldn't put them any higher than the pairs I have above them. It just doesn't do much for me. They're aging. So, Bulldogs for me.
Absolutely. Well, we'll get to into that one in a few teams' time because in 18th, I agree with you, Ant. I have Essendon. Brennan Zerk Thatcher doesn't give much, and Jordan Ridley, I think, with some of the names above him, I'm into more of the numbers. Some of the names above him, it's not quite enough for me. I guess I'll double back then. And for 17th, looking at this one, I don't think I'm very happy with where I've put these two. But after the performance last week, I've got North Melbourne, Griffin Logan, Ben Mackay. I just think I haven't been too impressed, especially after the first 7 rounds. Brando, what about you?
Oh, this one's a tough one for me to put this low because I think every other pairing that I have above them has like that one player who's elite or they work well as a pairing. And I think I just don't love watching Harris Andrews and Jack Payne. I've got Brisbane 17th. I think Brisbane's defensive capabilities lie on a lot of the other players that they have there. I think they're a brilliant defensive unit, but those two, they're just hard to watch. I think I'll be talking about the eye test a lot this video. And they don't do it for me on that front. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Talk about people that we may have quite a bit higher. I think we all spoke about how hard Brisbane were to rank.
Yep.
JT, if you want to get into your 17th pick.
This is going to be a long night, isn't it? I definitely didn't have Brisbane there. My 17th is basically the same thing. It's a lot of eye test, but it's also a lot of just I think these two aren't really sort of made for it anymore. I think one of them was very good, but it's sort of fallen off, and then the other one I've always been a little bit iffy on. But I'm going to go with the Hawks. I'm going to go with James Sicily and Sam Frost. I'm going to go there in my 17th spot.
Absolutely. Get moved straight on. Anthony, what are you about you there?
There's some very interesting selections from you three. And look, you base it purely on the duo. You don't base it on team defense. You base it on, eye-catching performances like Brando said, or how you feel a bit iffy. I've got the Dogs in 17th with Keith and Jones. Just a bit of an explanation. These bottom two sides that I picked are purely based on performance one-on-one and rebound and intercept marking. It's just a defensive thing that you just pick up along the way. So that's what 17th is.
That was coming.
I'm really glad you mentioned some of those stats there, because I'm going to jump in with 16th, where I've got the Dogs, which is purely, they're only in 16th for one man, and none of you are going to like it, but it is Liam Jones. He's dragged him up 2 spots. I'm glad you talk about intercept marks and contested one-on-ones, because Liam Jones really isn't that bad. You could... He's not great, but he's in the top 10 for contested defensive one-on-ones, and he's only losing about 20-ish%, which is pretty good for someone in that who's getting that much volume. And then he's 6th in the league for intercept marks total. He's doing a lot when they're getting a lot back there, but again, that's only enough to get him to 16th. So let's not praise it too much. But
I'll tell you what, though. Feel sorry for Alex Keith. Then he's not pulling his weight. If that's the case,
he's doing a lot.
Yeah, he missed a few games due to injury. So let's
instead of Keith, they had Josh Bruce,
who's also not flashed by any standard.
Hooray for the Bulldogs!
Let's keep this train on the road. We'll go full throttle here. We're in 16th. JT, I'll throw to you.
I'm going to go. I think Jacko. I think you've already said them. I think these two are they're okay. They're on their day, they're not too bad, but I'm also sort of basing it off last weekend as well. We just saw them get pumped by Melbourne, so I'm going to go with Ben Mackay and Griffin Logue in North Melbourne.
Very good. Brando, you want to keep us going there with yours?
Yes, I think much in the same vein as what you explained with the Bulldogs, Jacko, I've gone with Sicily and Frost, and it's really Sicily dragging up that list. I mean, he's, on his day, one of the best defenders in the league, but yeah, I mean, poor defensive team overall, and they're a part of that, really, and Sam Frost isn't really doing much for me. So, yeah, 16th.
Very good. Anthony, who do you have in 16th there?
I'm the same as JT, Logan Mackay from North Melbourne. We obviously don't know if Mackay is real or not, so we're not sure exactly how that's tracking. And Griffin Logue still probably, since coming out of Freo, hasn't really found his way. So I think overall North Melbourne haven't had a great defensive structure with those two down back.
Absolutely. I might continue with you there, Anthony, if you then want to tell us about your 15th.
15th, I am Hawthorn, Sicily and Frost. Look, individually, they're not too bad. Together, well, let's speak for yourself. They're 15th, so that's my choice.
JT, we'll go back to you, mate.
I think I'm the first person to say this team. I think Jacko, I think you're gonna have them a lot higher than I do here. I'm gonna go with the Richmond Football Club in Tyler Young and Noah Bolter. Now, here's where the issue comes in, right? I think Tyler Young is pretty good. I think it's Noah Bolter where they fall over. Noah Bolter has lost 40% of his contested defensive one-on-ones this year, which is one of the highest in the league for the amount that he does. Tyler Young, on the other hand, only loses 12.5%. So I think he's fine. Noah Bolter is not as fine. So I think for that, I have Richmond in 15th.
You're not wrong. I do have them quite a ways higher, but we'll touch on that one later. Brando, who have you got in number 15 there?
I've got Mackay and Logue. I think I'm the last one to say them. I think individually they're good players. It's just not come together yet. Ben Mackay's young. He's got time, but yeah, we'll see what they can do later on. But for now, I think they're 15.
So I think a lot of us are pretty close with what we've got here, apart from obviously the two that haven't said Essendon. And I'll join you once again with Hawthorn, who I've got here. Pretty much everyone's touched on it. Sicily on his day can be really good, although we saw him get torched up by Jeremy Cameron earlier in the year. But again, Jeremy Cameron, you can't read too much into that. Sam Frost, though, just makes some dumb decisions. On to 14th, though, we've all wrapped up our bottom four. We'll start to edge towards middle of the table. Brando, if you want to kick us off with number 14.
Yes, I'll jump on that Richmond bandwagon. I've got Bolter and Tyler Young. I think, as JT said, Tyler Young I've been impressed with. Like during gather round, I was at the Sydney Richmond game, sitting in the Sydney cheer squad, behind the Sydney cheer squad, and Tyler Young actually impressed me. Like, he was really good, and Bolter is good as well, but I just couldn't justify putting them above the teams that I have above them, and that's just how a lot of this sort of section of the list is. So, yeah, Bolter and Tyler Young 14th.
Interesting. Anthony, you want to go with yours there?
I'm the same as Brando, Richmond in 14th. Now, the question mark here is, do you go with Bolter and Young, or do you go Bolter and Grimes? I think that was probably the key there and why they're probably so low. If you go Bolter and Grimes, obviously Young's been very impressive. He's injured this week as well, coming up against the Eagles. So if we're relying on Bolter, then the Eagles might have half a sniff. But yeah, if you're going to go those two, I think they're pretty much settled in the bottom five for duos.
My list may be getting a little bit of an edit on the run here. Something we should have mentioned at the start. Injuries are not really taken into consideration. Obviously, we have both McCartan brothers for the Swans. We're just sort of basing on a mix of this season, last season, and I guess the eye test. Into 14th is where I have West Coast, which feels low now that I'm saying it. Tom Barrass, very good. He's been really good so far this season. Jeremy McGovern, obviously injured now. He only really played 3 games. I wasn't really impressed with what I saw compared to some of the individual. I think a lot of individuals are carrying the teams above them at the moment. Apart from that, yeah, West Coast, which in hindsight feels pretty low. JT, who do you have in 14th?
I'm going to go to the other West Australian team. I'm going to go with Freo. I would have had them lower, but I think Brennan Cox kind of carries them up a little bit. Sorry, Alex Pearce, but Brennan Cox is leading the league in spoils this year, which is fine. He still loses a few one-on-ones, but I think Freo as a whole, as you can see, this year they have not been very good. And I think that kind of starts with their leader down back in Pearce and Cox, and I think that duo isn't really amazing, so I've got them in 14th.
Very good. That is everyone with 14th correct. We'll go on to 13th, and I'll kick us off there. I'll just run off pretty much what JT said. That's where I've got Freo. I pretty much agree. Brennan Cox pretty well carries him there. He's leading the league in spoils. He's not terrible one-on-one. Alex Pearce takes a lot of one-on-ones, but he's losing about 30% of his. It's nothing outstanding, and probably just drags them down a little bit. Brando, who do you have for 13th?
I'm going to take Ridley and Zerk Thatcher off my board. I like watching Jordan Ridley, and I think that's what pushed them up this list significantly for me. And obviously, Brendan Zerk Thatcher, young kid, he's coming into his own this year. He's looking a bit better. Obviously, nothing outstanding, but I think it's enough. Like, the way I enjoy Ridley is enough to push him up the list. So, yeah.
Very good. Run around the Zoom here. Anthony, who do you have in 13th?
Yeah, I've got Freo as well. Cox and Pearce. I think just with Cox, obviously Cox is statistically pretty sound, but Pearce is probably feeling the effect of captaincy more so than anything. And I think, you can only do so much as a defender. And then you've got to lead your club, which becomes so much more than just defending one-on-one. So I think he's probably feeling the effect of that. And that's probably why they're having a bit of I won't even say slump. I think they're sinking as the anchor is going down at the moment. So, it's a shame, but got better teams going out there at the moment.
Very good. Big, the end of flag mantle there for Anthony, hidden in his defensive rankings.
Anchor mantle. That's what they are. They're sinking. Sink mantle.
Okay. That's what okay. We'll move on from that one pretty swiftly. JT, who do you have in 13th?
I just keep swapping WA teams. This is one where I've got West Coast. Following on from what you said, basically Barrass I think has been pretty impressive. I think McGovern is starting to decline as he gets older. As much of the West Coast team, funnily enough. So I think West Coast as a whole obviously aren't winning many games. Obviously, McGovern's been injured and things, but yeah, I've got West Coast in 13th.
Very good. Brando, I guess we'll get you to take us into 12th.
I've got Alex Pearce and Brennan Cox there. Not going to go too far into it, obviously. It's already been covered a fair bit, but I think traditionally they've been one of the better teams in the league defensively in previous years, and they've fallen off a bit this year. But yeah, Cox still looks good. It's hard to put them any higher, but yeah, 12th seems about right for them.
JT, I'm going to jump back to you for 12th. I've just remembered we haven't heard Essendon for you yet. Is not to say this is where you've got him, but I just want to know who you have for 12th.
Great timing. Yeah, this is where I've got Essendon. I've got Essendon in 12th. I think, as we've sort of said, they're okay. I think I like Ridley. Not as much as a sort of key defender, but I think he's not too bad. Zerk Thatcher loses a lot of his one-on-ones, which is the thing that I think gets me. So I have them in 12th. As we saw on the weekend, Tom Wilkins kind of tore them apart. Not saying, well, obviously Tom Wilkins is a good player, but I think if you're going to get killed like that, I think that kind of brings you down a little bit.
Absolutely, Anthony. You want to keep us going there with number 12?
I've got West Coast in 12th. Obviously, he's been covered a fair bit with Barras and McGovern. They're going to really struggle in the future if McGovern's having a big downfall and Barras is taking all the key forwards and obviously taking as many intercept marks as he can. He's obviously been an absolute star, but they're going to fall away, and they'll fall away quickly if they don't fix something there.
Absolutely. Well, my number 12th is where I've got Brisbane. Kind of not disagreeing with where Brando had him before, but I've been really impressed with Jack Payne. I think he's sort of pushed him up to this high, and I'm not too far against Harris injuries either. I haven't been super happy with what he's done this season, but Jack Payne I think has been really impressive, and he's been enough to just put him above some of the teams I've got below. That takes us to 11th. JT, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, this is where it starts getting a little bit interesting, I think. I have here, and I think I'm the first person to say, I have Charlie Ballard and Sam Collins from the Gold Coast Suns. I don't think they're bad. I just think they have a lot to do still. I think Sam Collins is pretty good. I just think Ballard maybe brings him down a little bit. Jacko's reaction has me scared, so that'll be interesting.
Yeah, there's no comment from me at the moment for that one. Anthony, who do you have in 11?
I've got the Adelaide Crows, actually. Murray and Duday, I think. Look, they've been very impressive, but I think one-on-one, obviously, they're still a bit... Obviously, Doherty's a fantastic footballer, and he's been one that's probably carried their defence over the years that they've been pretty much lacking, and I think Murray's come in this year and done pretty well, but they probably fall in that bracket where you can go, well, you could be as high as 7th, but you're going to be as low as 11th on my list. So that's probably nothing they're doing wrong. I think it's just there's a better caliber of duos out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we all sort of agree there's really a top sort of 6, and then there's like another 4 or 5 below them. And then I think our bottom sort of 6 to 7 were all very similar.
Yeah.
Brando, you want to go there with who you have in 11th?
I'm also a little bit scared by Jacko's reaction before, because I've got Sam Collins and Charlie Ballard as well. But as JT said, I don't think they're outstanding. I don't think they're bad. I think Gold Coast are actually deceptively really good at defending. Like, they're one of the better defensive teams considering where they are. And they got a couple of really good one-on-one defenders, but I just couldn't justify putting them above my top 10. So
I'm purely the eye test.
Yeah, there's a lot of eye tests involved again. Like, it's this section. But yeah, 11th for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Did I get your 11th already?
Yeah, Crows.
Yeah, I did. So that leaves with me that now this has been a live edit. I've bumped it down a little here. This is where I'm going to put Richmond at the moment. I've been really impressed with Tyler Young. I'm not going to say where I had them, but I had them a little bit higher. And a lot of that was to do with him. Noah Bolter's actually impressed me with more of his intercept marking and intercept possessions. I believe he led the league in intercept marks for the first month or so before sort of dropping back a little bit. So I'm more than happy to have him mid-table, and I guess anywhere in these next few positions are all pretty similar. That one moves us to the top 10. And this is, I think, where it starts to become a bit harder to rank some of these teams. Brando, if you want to kick us off.
Yep, I've got the Adelaide pairing there, Nick Murray and Tom Duday. I think, as Ant said, Duday's been really good for a number of years. He's super important to their makeup. And Nick Murray's had a breakout season this year. Again, touching on my Carlton bias, I watched them piece our team up this year. So, Nick Murray was really good that game, and he's been really good throughout the season. So, I've been impressed with them, and they cracked my top 10.
Yeah, absolutely. This is where I've got Adelaide as well. I've been pretty much, I won't add too much more. I've just been really impressed with Nick Murray. Top 10 in the league from contested defensive one-on-ones per game. He's only losing 19.2% of those, which is pretty astounding. We know what Tom Duday does. He's been so good for so long. Anthony, if you want to go with your first place in the top 10.
I've got GWS in 10th, Sam Taylor and Jack Buckley. Obviously, Sam Taylor is a out star, but I think the eye test for me probably is why they land here. He's probably done a bulk amount of work, but with Buckley, I just feel like there's an occasional mishap, and we obviously saw that. I think the benefit of that was probably round 1 with the Crows, and then they've been sound this year, but just for me, it's probably purely eye test. And to be honest, I forgot about them when I was doing the list, so they fell here.
I'm not going to say anything about that ranking. I'm just going to move on. I'm going to move on very, very quickly. Jarryd, off to you.
This is where I've got the Brisbane pair. I think, like everyone else here, I did not know where to put them, so I just decided to put them pretty much right down the middle and just went, that'll do. Andrews, I think, is kind of not getting found out, but he's sort of not what the player he used to be. Like you were saying, Jack Payne is kind of really stepping up a little bit this year, so I think that's what's bringing it all together. But I could not put him anywhere. I didn't know where to put him, so I've put him in 10th.
Very good. I'll kick us off with 9th, and sorry, Anthony, but this is where I've got the Port Adelaide duo. I think this is another one we're all sort of nervous about where to put them beforehand, because they could, with Trent McKenzie in there, they could sort of fall anywhere. But O'Leary has been great again. He's not having the one-on-one season that he did a couple of years ago, but he's progressed as the season's gone on. Intercepting, he's still very good. But again, I just can't put him over the teams I've got above him. Anthony, you want to continue there?
Yeah, I've got Gold Coast in 9th, Ballard and Collins for me. I think a bit like what JT did, just fell right smack bang in the middle. They've been impressive. And Ballard has probably had his best season to date. Collins has always been pretty sound, and he's got that look that just looks like the 80s at the moment. So I'm impressed by these two. And if Gold Coast, obviously, as a team, can start getting a few wins, they're going to stand up in big games, I reckon. So that's where I have them.
Interesting. JT, you want to go there with who you have in 9th?
I can't wait to see where Jacko's put Gold Coast. In my 9th, I've got the Adelaide pairing. I think I'm the last person to say them. They have been ultra impressive, especially Nick Murray to me. I think they've been really, really good, and it's showing on the ladder. They've got obviously that forward line we talk about, but that back line's also held up really strong, and that's why I've got them in 9th. So they're pretty good. Obviously, they're still developing. I think they even in coming years they're going to be even better. So we've got Adelaide in 9th.
Absolutely. We've said everything he said there. Brando, on to yours.
Yes, I'm the same as you, Jacko. I've got O'Leary and Trent McKenzie. I think O'Leary's outstanding. I mean, he's found his AA form again this year quite easily. And McKenzie isn't outstanding by any means, but he takes it forward. He does a job. And he looks good on the eye test. And I'll keep saying it. That left boot is just remarkable. So, put him 9th.
Very good. Into the top 8 now, things are starting to get, in the finals territory for defenders. Anthony, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I've got the Brisbane pair, actually. Again, like with Andrews probably carries this pair a fair bit and hasn't been as great as probably was. But I think, one-on-one, they've stood up pretty well this year and across the board over the last 18 months or so. And Payne can have his moments. But I think overall, that they do the job quite well, and defensively as a team, they're quite sound. So I think, with those two complementing that, they deserve to be in and around the mark. But again, they're one of those pairings you can chuck in 14th and be happy with, but also they could crack a top 6 if they're on their day.
Absolutely, Brando. Who do you have in your 8th slot?
This is where I have Jeremy McGovern and Tom Barrass, so a little bit higher than everyone else. You did forget about them because I left them a bit later. But I think the reason I've done this is purely based on Jeremy McGovern and the levels that we've seen him hit. And we know Tom Barras is probably the standout now in the Eagles back line now that McGovern's injured. And despite the poor performances, he's been pretty good generally. But I think obviously Jeremy McGovern played the first 2 games this year, and those were the Eagles' 2 best defensive games. And obviously now his numbers are a bit skewed by injury, but he's still elite in a number of metrics, 8.7 intercept possessions a game, 4 intercept marks a game. He's a great distributor at the footy. So I think if he gets back and he recaptures that form, we'll see them definitely improve slightly, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see for that one. I think he's out for a considerable amount of time. JT, and your 8?
This is where I've got the Port pair, so I went from Adelaide to Port. Alir and Mackenzie, as we know, I think Alir is having a really good year. I think he's sort of trying to line himself up for another All-Australian Blazer. I think the funny thing about this pairing is that if we decided to go with Alir and Tom Jonas, like we originally said, I think they'd be lower, which is weird to say, considering about a captain of your club. But as Ant said, being defender and being a captain isn't always easy. I think Tom Jonas might be feeling that a little bit. But with Alir and Mackenzie, I think it actually brings it up. Alir, obviously, as we know, and then Trent McKenzie, exactly like Brando, the eye test is great. So I've got those guys in.
It's lucky we've waited a few weeks to do this. We were going to do it a few weeks ago, and one of our pairs included the West Coast pair was Tom Barras and Brady Hoff, I believe, was the second one we had there. So, okay, number 8 is where I've got Geelong. Yeah. I've got Geelong in 8th, and
that is the premiership key defensive duo.
Yep, absolutely it is. And I can sit here and say that they could have gone high, but I think they just fell down to 8th. Tom Stewart obviously had his injury round 1 and came back. He's been great on the intercept, as he usually is. But one-on-one, he hasn't been remarkable. He hasn't been outstanding so far this season. Sam DeConning I'm a big fan of Sam DeConning, so I might be judging him pretty harshly, but I also haven't been super impressed with what I've seen from him. He has not been in a lot of one-on-ones, which I thought he'd been a lot more, and he hasn't really been winning a huge amount of them anyway. So that rounds out my 8 slot. Interested to see where you guys have yours.
Well, I'll tell you what. I reckon yours has got stats and salt on that one, you Sydney supporter.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. I got Jacko.
Sprinkle the old salt on that one, champion.
You guys cut out for me, so I didn't hear any of that. I'll wait till I listen to the video. Look, you guys can have Gold Coast low. I'll have them high. I'll have Geelong low. We'll listen to that. This is just, we're ranking the pairing here. Remember, we're not ranking the defence. We're ranking the pairing.
We can definitely rank the salt. Number 1.
I think something that comes into with me, I played a lot into this season's form rather than sort of body of work with that one. But enough of that. We'll move on to number 7, Brando. Who do you have there?
I'm glad you went with me first. Obviously, we're poking fun at you, but I also have Sam DeConning, and Tom Stewart in at 7th.
That's my boy.
Obviously, they're the premiership duo, so it's hard to put them this low. But I just think the 6 above them are better defensive duos, as you said. Stewart's top class, and Sam DeConning is really good for his age, but I just think the 6 above them are better. It's that simple.
I am very interested to see where the other 2 have placed Geelong here. JT, we'll go to you for your 7.
I really didn't think I was going to be the first people to put them here, but I've got Callum Wilkie and Dougal Howard in 7. Now, this is pretty much based off Cal Wilkie, I obviously love, and I think he's one of the best key defenders in the comp at the moment. Dougal Howard isn't in the form that he used to be in. I'm obviously ranking on pairings. They're a good defensive duo, as we know, but I think it's also our backline isn't just relying on those 2. We aren't having a lot of points scored against us because we have a good backline in total. And Josh Battle plays a lot into that. So it's not really a pairing, it's more of a trio, which is why I have them lower, because I don't really think Howard is as good as Wilkie, obviously not, but I think he sort of just brings it down a little bit. So I have my boys, Wilkie and Howard in 7.
I'm going to follow right in from you there because I also have them in 7th. I think I had them a lot higher when we were doing it a few weeks ago. I haven't been super impressed with those 2, but I've been impressed with them, but not as much as I was at the start of the season. They're they've been reasonably good one-on-one. Their intercepts have been great, but just a little bit of a drop-off for me. Anthony, who do you have in 7?
Yeah, this is where I bring in Lear and Trent McKenzie. If we did, and it was probably my doing for the fact that we swapped it to McKenzie from Jonas, purely because Jonas has always been that third tool. He's probably been the consistent one in the side, but if you look at every key matchup on a big key forward, Trent McKenzie is probably taking the big one. And you did mention before about Lear's one-on-one not having as much of an impact. I probably disagree with that. I reckon he's had a better one-on-one season compared to his last two, even including his All-Australian year. He probably hasn't done it stacked up against the best big key forwards yet, but he probably hasn't played the best as yet with the fixture for this year. But I think as a body of work for those two, it stands out. Our defensive, even 2022, our defensive unit was always quite good in the top 6 for points against and one-on-ones. And 2021, we know where we ended up. So I think with those two, Leary is the best defender in the comp. I'll say it in everything I appear in, everything I talk about. Leary is the best defender in the comp, and you will not change my mind.
Okay, I'm not gonna argue with you there. You watch him a lot more than I do, so I'll defer.
I do, yes, multiple times a week.
I am going to be the third person here to rank my own team, and number 6 is where I've got the Swans. I really wanted to put them higher, but I just couldn't put them above the teams that I've got in my top 5. Obviously, we're missing Paddy for a while, and that's really hurt. We've seen what happens when the Swans don't have Paddy McCartan. It was good to have Tom McCartan back on the weekend. These two are incredible one-on-one defenders. Their combined loss percentage is less than 20, which is absolutely ludicrous. They're not great interceptors, but we've got other players to sort of do that. We bring the ball to ground a lot more. They spoil, but 6 is where I've got those ones. And I'll go back to you for this one, mate.
This is where I do have St Kilda. And I've been very impressed. And JT spot on with the fact they're more of a trio, more of a defensive unit as a whole. But you look at how they stack up against the big key forwards, and they do a fair, decent job. So, and obviously, Dougal Howard being from Port Adelaide and watching him a fair bit, he does have his hits and misses, but he can be quite flexible. So I think that should be taken into account a little bit more as well.
Absolutely. JT, with yours?
Yeah, I'm going to follow in from you, Jacko. I'm going to go with the Swans as well. I think if obviously Paddy was still playing, I reckon they would definitely be higher on my list. I think if we did this at the start of the year, they would be quite possibly top 2, top 3. But obviously, as we've seen, Paddy's always been injured, and we said injuries don't really matter too much. But I'm taking it a little bit into account as well. I just think, without both of them there, they struggle a little bit. But I think they're still obviously some of the best defenders in the comp. They didn't make a grand final last year for no reason. So I've got the McCartan brothers in 6.
Brando?
Yep. I don't have much more to add on that. I also have the McCartans. It's harsh because, as JT said, they'd probably be in my top 3 if we did this ranking in January. But it's not January; it's May. So, yeah,
Really,
they're a really good defensive duo. And when Paddy gets back and Tom's back in form, when Sydney find form as a whole, they're going to be a massive part of that. So, hopefully, we can see that. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's pretty much everything we need to say with the Swans. Top 5. This is where it gets serious. There's some names that some of us haven't said. There's some names that some of us have already said that didn't get expected. JT, if you want to kick us off with your number 5.
Yeah, this one it's a bit of eye test, but it's a bit of just love for the boys. I've got the Giants pair in Sam Taylor and Jack Buckley. I've got them in 5th. This top 5 is really hard to split for me. I struggled really hard to split this top 5. And I love what they're doing back there. Especially Jack Buckley has been super impressive. Unbelievably impressive. He's 3rd in the league in spoils, and he's just been huge. So I have them really high. Obviously, the Giants as a whole are sort of mid. They're actually performing above expectations, and I think a lot of that is because of this backline that they've put together. Obviously, we know what Toby Green can do, and we know what Himmelberg's doing, but I think this backline is quite underrated still, and it's kind of a reason why they're higher on the ladder than a lot of people had them.
Absolutely. I should have said before we started this, we could probably go into a bit more detail here with our top 5 because this is where it starts to get serious, and we might need some justifications to split this top 5. I'll jump in here. It was really tough to put these guys this low on name alone, and I'm going to send some shock faces, but I have Melbourne in 5th. I know it's low.
Oh,
Oh
Oh.
boy.
Melbourne.
Yeah.
yeah.
Stephen May, when he's on the park, has been good one-on-one. He's good interceptor. He's been beaten, one-on-one, a bit more often than you'd like from your key defender. Jake Lever as well. He's been great intercepting and whatnot. His work one-on-one hasn't been as influential. He's been winning his contests, but he hasn't been in as many as I think you'd want. He's dropping off a lot to take that intercept mark. I'll probably regret having him fifth, but like JT said, this top five was so hard to split, and there was just sort of one number, one way or the other, that could see you fall out. Ant, I'll let you sort of jump in here.
Yeah, clearly I missed the crossing of the Sydney Harbour Bridge to put him in sixth, but I got him in fifth. McCartan times two. They've obviously had a pretty good 18 months, and missing them when they're both injured or one of them is injured clearly rocks the boat. And I think Sydney wouldn't be anywhere as near as bad as they have been in the last few weeks without these with these two if they were in. So they've been very impressive though. I think as I said, the body of work has probably been one thing that I've judged this on, and they could be higher. I think as a top five, you kind of get a grasp on who's the duo, and I think landing fifth, third, second, first in this list shouldn't be taken away from how good these top five will be. So I'll have the McCartans, but Melbourne, Jacko.
Just wait. There's some numbers coming later. Don't you worry about that.
Oh, I'm expecting numbers, explanations.
Just for the viewers at home. I'm pretty sure Jacko still hasn't said Ballard and
Gold
Collins.
Coast.
Yeah,
Yes.
No, I haven't.
But I don't blame him because they're good. But we'll see.
Again, I base this a lot on numbers in this season form. I am not. When it comes to the, I'm putting this season's form over body of work, in my opinion, which I think is why teams like Melbourne slipped to fifth. Before we move on,
sorry to interrupt, but I think body of work sort of comes into the form of this year, and it's not an argument. It's just stating that I think if you base it on form currently, their body of work, especially in the last 18 months for any of these duos, has definitely probably put them in the position they've been. So if you've got them wherever, then full credit to you. I just hope you have your Twitter open.
oh, we'll throw the handle at the end. Don't you worry about that. Very good discussion there, but we do have to finish fifth. Brando, I'll throw to you. We don't want to skip you here if you want to put who rounds out your top five.
Yes, I've got Wilkie and Howard here. As we mentioned before, Wilkie's unbelievable. Like, he's taken it to the next level this year. When he plays loose, he's just so hard to beat. Outstanding. Obviously, 8.7 intercept possessions a game, 8.6 marks a game, almost 20 touches at 83%. Like, he's the full package. Obviously, Dougal Howard's the one who kind of affects the duo, and he's a solid partner, nothing flash, but it's hard to put them any higher when he's not as good as Wilkie. Flat out.
Yeah, absolutely. You said the package there, and I thought, Jake Stringer isn't a defender, but you saved it. That's we're all good. Into the top four, Anthony. I'll let you kick us off.
Yeah, this is actually where I do have May and Lever from Melbourne. So I think based on you sort of go with name and how Melbourne have been over the last couple of years with this one. May obviously hasn't been great in 2023, but overall, and those two are on, and when they're together, they will stop any forward line in the comp. And I think, but to put them fourth was a bit harsh alone. But there's obviously three better, so that's why I've got them fourth.
Very good. So you've got into me about having Melbourne fifth, but you've only put them one higher.
Yes, but it's one higher, which is a lot more respectable than one lower.
Yeah, very true. JT, we'll go to you there.
This one's interesting to me. Five is so hard to split. This is where I've got the Carlton boys. I've got Lewis Young and I've got Jacob Wiedering. I love Lewis Young so much. He's one of my favorite players in the league, Lewis Young, because he's just really good. He's just a classic big defender. He'll take a mark. He'll spoil. He's third in the league in spoils as well. So Lewis Young, I think, actually brings us up more than Wiedering does, which is interesting. When you think about it, because Wiedering's kind of that big a name, but I think Lewis Young is kind of putting together one of those seasons where he's really underrated. So I've got them in fourth, not quite as good as the three that I've got above them, but it's still a very good duo, no matter what.
Yeah. Brando, you want to go with your fourth spot?
Yes, this is where I've put Sam Taylor and Jack Buckley. Obviously, they're a distant memory for Ant, who has put them a lot lower. But yeah, Sam Taylor's unreal. He's the reason they're here. I mean, All Australian last year, brilliant intercept, great mover of the football, so hard to score against. Like he's much like Carl Wilkie, the full package. And yeah, he's only 23 as well. Like ridiculous. He's going to get better. Like it's stupid. Hopefully, when he gets back from injury, he'll recapture that form. And Jack Buckley has been a really solid partner this year as well. Been in the system a couple of years and sort of coming into his own this year. So yeah, impressive stuff.
There is going to be some interesting comments and conversations had after this video. Now, this top four for me was very hard to split. I'm not 100% confident with where I've got the spots 2, 3, and 4. And I think 3 and 4 especially are very interchangeable. But 4 is where I've put Collingwood. I've got Collingwood in 4 purely based on the numbers for this season is what's put them in 4th. Darcy Moore, we obviously know how good he is. JT, you and I both know how good Nathan Murphy's been. He's been absolutely outstanding in that second role there. But I get they're a very good duo. It's just sometimes they let me down individually when they're playing that. This is the eye test for me. Watching them, they get the stuff, they get it done, but just not 100% of the time. And I think that's what falls them to 4th. Now, I will go back here, and if you do want to set your pens down, this is where I've got Gold Coast. We can talk about it here. Charlie Ballard and Sam Collins. Okay. This is the only team in the league where both key defensive are top 10 for intercept marks. They are also they're one of 2 teams that have both players top 10 for contested one-on-one percentage. However, their Gold Coast contested one-on-one percentage combined is less than 20%, where the other one is in the mid-20s. So one-on-one, they have so much volume and they are executing that at an elite level, and it is absolutely crazy. They're taking the intercepts, they're making the spoils. The pure numbers that these 2 are putting up this season it would be remarkable for one player to do. For these 2 players to do it, I am absolutely astounded. And I thought I might have them top 5, but when I really came down to it, I couldn't have them outside my top 3. Yeah, you can make your comments. I'm open to all criticism, but that's where I've sort of ended up with them.
No, that's
Where did I put
fair
him?
enough.
I put him. I put him
I had him
11th. You almost had me convinced, Jacker. You almost had me convinced.
Mine came down to the eye test because I forgot about them.
My thoughts here. Okay, here's my
We'll have a discussion. Let's have a round table.
Here's where my Saints fan comes into me. Anthony Caminiti kicked 2 goals on Tuesday.
That's it.
Continue.
Does that mean Anthony? Do I mean I have to rank Anthony Caminiti in my top 2 next week? Oh, I don't even know what to say. I don't have the players that have kicked goals on them up. I've got every other tab up, but I don't have that one. Okay.
There's a question for you. Give me a question.
Just for everyone else, Anthony Caminiti is also now one of JT's favorite players, so it's a privilege, if anything. Okay, so that's the end of the mystery of where I have Gold Coast and why I have them that high,
and why I don't have them that high.
Yeah, exactly right. We'll move on here with some more regular top 3s. We'll go to JT there.
This is where I've got the Cats. So the Premiership defenders. The top 3, like I think of my top 5, I think these 3 were the ones that were challenging for that top spot, the ones I've got left. Cats, like you said before, I think I've not been as impressed with DeConing as I did last year when he sort of came in. Obviously Stewart was injured, so it's a bit different, but Stewart obviously is a great player, but I consider him more of sort of that intercept and that running player. So that's why I've got him a little bit lower. But obviously still an amazing key defensive duo. You know, they won a flag, so you can't go against them at all of that, 18 months of work. So I've got him 3rd.
Yeah, very good. Brando?
I've got Darcy Moore and Nathan Murphy in at third. For starters, Darcy Moore is probably one of the best leaders from the back I've seen in a while. Outstanding, and as a Carlton fan, he's probably one of the only Collingwood players I can tolerate. Elite in every facet of the game. So fun to watch. And Nathan Murphy is probably one who's flown right under the radar for a long time, but seems to be getting his credit now. Very good defender, great in the contest, complements Moore brilliantly. Not much more I can say.
Very good. We'll go to Ant there to round out our top threes.
Yeah, I've got the Cats in third as well. I think it's been interesting this year because you probably can throw up the conversation for that trio of STK, Stewart, and Radigalia. And surprisingly, you put Radigalia in there and it drops him a few spots. But I think it's more body of work and probably reputation more so than anything here. They stand up in big moments. They stand up in big games. Obviously, won a flag and they still do the job no matter what. SDK has probably gone through the ruck a little bit more and has been quite impressive, but overall, they're very hard to get past, and I think that they warrant a top three spot.
Very good. Now it's time for the top two.
If you're following it the whole way through, surely you know whereabouts we stand.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep myself down because when we did the behind the scenes here, when we did the ladder predictor, I forgot one of the numbers. So this is more for myself than the viewers.
Before we get into this, actually,
Yep.
no. You know what?
No, go on. Jarryd, you go ahead.
Jacko.
Yep.
Have you still got the Giants on the board?
Yep.
Okay. So I was just asking a question.
That's okay. That's okay. You can ask. That's okay. I'll answer it later.
Okay.
Anthony, you want to double up here and tell us who you have at number two?
I've got the Pies at two, Murphy and Moore. I think Murphy's sort of been the surprise packet for me, and I've been genuinely impressed with the way he's gone about things. And I saw him firsthand when I went over and watched him against, when Port Adelaide played over there, and he was just so impressive. His movement off the ball is really elite. He steps up really well, and defenders, obviously, they don't get judged as much when it comes to their actual structural play when compared to, their one-on-ones, the spoils, intercepts and stuff like that, the main stats. But he is a structurally and fundamentally sound player and complements Moore so well. And Moore is probably the opposite of what Alex Spears is doing at the moment, thriving with the captaincy. So as a duo, they very hard to beat, and they keep winning. I don't know how, but they keep winning.
Oh, okay. JT, who do you have here?
This is one that I've literally been tossing up like right up until we pretty much started. This is where I'm going to put Melbourne. Now I've got Stephen May and Jake Lever. In the fact that they are so high because of their history the last 18 months, because obviously they have probably been the two best key defenders in the comp since they won the flag, key defensive duo. But I think this year they haven't been as good as the duo that I have high. And I just love the duo that I have at number one as well. So I think I'm going to put them at two in Stephen May and Jake Lever, but that is nothing to be sneezed at. They're obviously contending again for a reason. And it's because they're really structurally sound at the back. And yeah, Stephen May and Jake Lever are obviously going to be right up there for me. So they're going to be second.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll jump in here and sort of kind of answer JT's question, but I'll save all questions till the end. Two is where I have the Blues. They were the other two. They're the other side that there was both players in the top 10 of contested defensive one-on-ones. They're both ranked, they're equal fifth in the league. They take about 4.5 a game. Jacob Wiedering is, as always, very good one-on-one. He's only about he's in the 15% loss range. Lewis Young's up around the low 30s. Which I think is really good. He makes up for it with intercepts, and that's that part of the play. But I think I really look for one-on-one. When I'm looking at a key defensive pair, I want to see them lock down that opposition tall forwards. And I think this is just sort of they're number one was number one for it's no secret anymore. The Giants were number one for me from the start, and we'll get into that later. But the Blues were pretty much always a number two. They're just really good. Just not quite good enough. Brendo, I'll have you finish up number two here.
Yes, I also have the Blues. Jacob Wearing's been one of the best key defenders in the league for years now, and he's having another great season. after a down period last year following his injury. So he's still hard to match up on, and I hope he gets his AA blazer soon because he deserves one of those. And then Lewis Young's taken an absolute leap. Top class one-on-one defender now. And I think barring the Adelaide game, where, as I said before, they pretty much tore us to shreds, he's been good almost every game. So, outstanding pairing, number 2.
Yep. We're into who everyone has first. If you're astute, you'd know who everyone has first. I know who I do. I can't think of some of the other boys, to be honest. Did anyone have any questions that I can answer before I go into this little spiel?
Just spiel it.
Sam Taylor and Jack Buckley. Those of you, the people in the inner sanctum, would know this shouldn't have been a surprise. I am very high on Sam Taylor, and this season Jack Buckley has come out of nowhere. Sam Taylor, we know exactly what he's done. All Australian last year. He was absolutely phenomenal from start to finish last year. Brilliant campaign, and he started to do it again. The man is 6th in league for intercept marks. He's 15th, I think, for spoils. He's got 31. He is. This is affected. He obviously just played just under half a game when he got injured, so the averages are affected off that. He averages about 3.5 contested defensive one-on-ones a game and loses 0.2 of those. His loss percentage is 5%. An elite loss percentage is low teens. That is absolutely crazy. And then you take into consideration Jack Buckley, who has almost been better. He might not be taking the number 1 defender, but he is number 1 in the league for contested defensive one-on-ones per game with 5.4, with a loss percentage of 18. So you combine their loss percentage, it's 11. It's elite. It might even be below 10. I haven't. Sorry, it's 12.8 combined, which is absolutely crazy. Buckley has 55 spoils. He's 3rd in the league. He is 15th for intercept marks. He's doing everything. They're both doing everything. Giants have, JT said it when he did it, they're overperforming, and it is because of these two. We can talk about Toby Green. We can talk about their midfield. Sam Taylor and Jack Buckley are probably, in my opinion, 2 of the best 5 key defenders in the league at the moment. And I've got them at number 1. If I'm happy to take any and all arguments.
Is that, are they 2 of the best 5 behind Aaliyah and Wilkie? 3 and 4, perhaps? Yeah. Okay, good. Who's next?
You can go, mate. I'll let you go.
I've got Patane, Carlisle, and Jakson Trank. No, I'm kidding. I'm only kidding.
Patane, Carlisle.
Carlton, obviously, Wiedering and Young. Brando pretty much, put it straightforward when he explained it too. I think they've just been very impressive. Young's come out of nowhere and just been one of those players that is just very, very difficult to get by. And I spoke about how Collingwood structure up and are fundamentally sound when they come defensively. Wiedering is obviously in charge of that, and Lewis Young's been absolutely impressive in that aspect as well. And I think, I don't know how Wiedering keeps doing it, but he's just, every time you see him lined up against your team, you're thinking, well, for example, Charlie Dixon's not kicking any goals. Whoever you've got as a key forward in your team that you support, you're just looking at Wiedering and going, we've got to find another avenue towards goal because he's not letting any of them in. And Lewis Young is coming into that ranks as well. And if Carlton are going to do anything in 2023, it's because of these 2.
Not because of Charlie Curnow, who's kicked on track for 100.
Defense wins games, mate.
Okay, very well. Well, JT started us off, so I'll let him finish it. Brando, if you want to go with who you have number 1.
Yes, I have put Stephen May and Jake Lever at number 1. And I think, obviously, form-wise, as you guys have explained previously, they're not as high up as what they usually are, but I've rewarded the body of work, as we said. And I started off talking about the eye test, and I'm really finishing talking about the eye test as well, because I still think they are far and away the scariest defensive duo for my team to come up against. Like, I would be scared seeing them next to my key forwards. Obviously, Stephen May is a little bit down on his output this season, but I think the entire defense struggled really when Lever was gone, so that plays a big part of that. Lever's still elite in so many metrics. Arguably the best intercept in the game still. 9.3 intercept possessions a game, 3.8 intercept marks a game. Great with the ball. They're both great with the ball. So, Melbourne for me, number 1, still number 1.
Very good. Start as we finish, JT, bring us home. Who do you have there?
This is where I've got I've been talking about him all year, Jacko. Like you said before, it's the Pies. Darcy Moore and Nathan Murphy. I just love these two so much. Darcy Moore as a captain is absolutely storming this league. He's just been unbelievable, and he's perfectly paired up with Nathan Murphy, who is he just gets the job done. He is exactly what you need as a defender. They're second lowest in points against. I know we haven't really touched on it at all, but I think the main reason for that is Darcy Moore and Nathan Murphy. You know, they are freakishly good at what they do. There is a reason Collingwood's top of the ladder right now. You know, they've got enough everywhere, but that backline holds up so well. And another thing as well is when like that last quarter comes, and we know what the whole last quarter deals with. When the other team sort of pushes against them, they do not back down. They are leading that team. They stand behind. They make sure that the ball is not coming back in there, and it leads to them just being able to rebound the ball straight back in. And we get all their goals that way. I've got them number one. Start of the year, I would have sort of put him fifth-ish, and because I love Nathan Murphy then, but he's impressed me even more now. I've got him at number one, the Pies duo.
Absolutely. Just wait until we talk about trios and we get to include Billy Frampton in that one.
Oh, baby. There we go.
That's all four of us have different number ones, and we spoke about how even that we spoke about how even that top five is. I mean, I don't think any of you had Giants in top five, but we spoke about how even that top five was, and we all have.
I'm fifth.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank
you. Thanks, lads.
Who are we talking about again?
Yeah. So I think that just shows how even the top end of the defenders are. Whereas we all sort of agree with the lower end as well. That was incredibly fun. I had a lot of fun doing that.
It's fun.
Keep an eye out for when we do the forwards, which should be coming out hopefully next week. But if not, it should be very soon after that. Thanks, lads, for joining me for another great video. I look forward to sitting around the table with you blokes again. This has been another video on the Inner Sanctum's YouTube channel. If you liked it, so make sure you subscribe, hit the like button, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.